Hello, welcome to another edition of Issues with JIDE. Here we'll talk about actions and inactions of those who shape our political and national landscape and how these impact us positively or otherwise. I'm Ibrahim Shita. Today on the show, Tambuwal describes Atiku as next president, says Tribunal will sack Tinubu. Also, Supreme Court adjourns Nnamdi Kanu's case to September the 14th, 2023, as Ozekhome says he is scared the IPOB leader might die in the DSS custody. And later on the show, more than 75,000 Nigerian nurses relocate abroad under President Muhammad Buhari. In the course of the program, we'll take your questions, but first, subscribe to our YouTube channel and drop your questions in the comment section. I have joining me via Zoom the maestro himself, Babajide Kolade-Otitoju. It's good to see you again this evening. BKO.
Oh, thank you. It's good to do this with you again this week.
Right, let's get down to today's issues. First one is the Sokoto State Governor Aminu Tambuwal saying that he is confident that the Presidential Election Tribunal would restore the mandate of the PDP presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar as president of Nigeria. So the same optimism has been expressed by the Labour Party. Are they seeing something we aren't seeing, BKO?
Perhaps. I would even be more of, I will find, let me put it this way, I will find it more believable when the PDP says that they can provide the facts that will enable the tribunal rule in their favor. I could be convinced to think that perhaps they have some cast iron evidence that the rest of us do not have access to. This is because the PDP came second in that presidential election. The PDP had greater spread in that presidential election, although just like the Labour Party, it did not score 25% in 24 states. But because it came second and won more states, recorded more votes than the Labour Party. I want to believe that if there should be any party challenging vigorously to have that election reviewed, perhaps have the election declared as having been won by a political party. I think that because the PDP came second, I could be led to believe that they stand a much better chance than any other party. Labour Party coming third and laying claim to coming first is unheard of. I've never had that this sort of thing happened, and it will be the eighth wonder of the world if tribunal were to rule in Labour Party's favor. There are different reliefs that the parties are seeking. Perhaps one or two of those reliefs will go the way of Labour Party, for example. But how the tribunal would jump over the party that came second and then declare that the one that came third was the winner of the election is something that I am eager to see. Miracles still happen in our world. And Don Williams sang the song that miracles, that's what life is about. I am eagerly waiting for how they intend to do it. But as you can see, they appear confident, they appear determined. And when Tambuwal says that Atiku is the next president, the swearing in of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, because I do not see anything that will stop Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu from being sworn in. Those who have gone to court seeking to stop the swearing in, I believe they are wasting their time. They are testing the waters. They are trying their luck. The Supreme Court in 2003, according to Mike Ahamba, Buhari's long-term lawyer, affirmed that those who have won elections, even if they have court cases, those court cases will not stop them from being sworn in. And that was why Dati Ahmed, Yusuf Dati Ahmed, the deputy to Peter Obi, got into the Senate through what was clearly election rigging. And ultimately, the real winner emerged through the Election Petitions Tribunal. And that, despite having spent about a year in the Senate, was sent packing. So these things happen. But to stop the inauguration, I do not see anyone succeeding in stopping the inauguration through a court of law. That inauguration has to take place because there is a problem that creates. If President Buhari has no right, no power to remain in office longer than the number of days allocated to him by the Constitution, that transition has to take place for the new president to take over. If the new president is sacked by the courts, then another one will be sworn in. But the inauguration will not be held up by any legal action. I know that a lot of people who hate Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, what they want to see is for that inauguration to be hitched, to be stopped by every means possible. Some have gone to court, as we have seen, and they are even saying that the 25 that Abuja, Tinubu didn't win, didn't get 25% in Abuja, and that for that reason, he's not legally elected. That too has said this, that it will be illegal to swear in, citing a number of reasons, including the fact that I did not score 25% in Abuja. Arguing stridently, as some people are doing, that you must score 65% in Abuja, 25% in Abuja to be elected president of our country is the most ridiculous argument I've seen in all my years as a journalist. Because what that says to people is that Abuja is superior to other states in our country. And there is no means by which Abuja is superior to the remaining 36 states of our country. If you are insisting that somebody must score 24% before he can be elected president. You are saying that even if a person scores 24%, 25% in all of the states, but fails to score 25% in Abuja, then it's not electable. It's extremely asinine, it's extremely ridiculous, and I'm ashamed of lawyers who are making this argument, because the illogic behind this argument is confounding. It is there for everyone to see, that you are saying that no matter what happens, even if you score 25% in all the 36 states, if you do not score 25 in Abuja, you cannot be elected. It's extremely ridiculous, and I'm actually ashamed that this is the level to which people have taken these post-election arguments. Abuja is not superior to any state in Nigeria. The people who live in Abuja, they don't have 2 heads. They don't have 3 heads. They don't have double genitalia. They are just like the rest of us. So the vote in Abuja, when it is cast, is not superior to the vote in Function or Potiskum or Iwo in Osun State. Neither is it superior to votes cast somewhere along the banks of River Niger in Kebbi State. So this is particularly confounding to me. But if Governor Tambuwal says Atiku is the next president, maybe he has facts that the rest of us do not have, and I will not sit here and dismiss his arguments. Let them present the facts before the courts, and let us see the decision that the courts will give. And I expect everyone who has had the courage to approach the tribunal to be patient and wait for the tribunal to make its decision. This is the least that we can do. The heating up of the polity has to end. Let's focus on substantive matters.
Fabian Akeze says Tambuwal is just playing safe because his tenure as governor is coming to an end and he needs to remain relevant. He knows that Atiku does not stand a chance of winning at the tribunal. Evan says JIDE would accept IREV will prove or information found in IREV. I do not get his question. JIDE, maybe he's trying to say, would you accept what IREV? No, the question is not clear. Shomade says, greetings, Babajide, thank you for your thoughtful analysis. And at Nam says, looking forward to swearing in of the Jagaban. Right, I think that's much we can take on this particular topic. Let's move on. If you have some other things to say about it, we'll probably revisit it. Let's change tack now by looking at the Supreme Court, which has adjourned the hearing in the suit filed by IPOB for the release of Nnamdi Kanu to September the 14th. However, Kanu's senior counsel, Michael Ozekhome, expressed worries that his client might die in the DSS custody due to his deteriorating health, which requires surgical operations. What are the issues for you here, Bikeo?
Yeah, the September 14 is a bit far, but as Mike Ozekhome admitted, it is not the fault of the Supreme Court. It has to do with the busy schedule of the apex court of our country. All kinds of matters get right up to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court is the final court in the land and is still the most trusted court in the land. Because people believe that once the Supreme Court decides on the matter, then so be it. It is not every judgment of the Supreme Court that people agree with, but the Supreme Court, by the law of averages, has most of the time stood by the Nigerian people. he's played his role as the voice of the powerless, as the court that gives power to the powerless in our land. Ozekhome wants Nnamdi Kanu to be transferred to Kuje prison. Remember, they've been asking for this transfer to Kuje prison for a long time. But every time they ask for this transfer to Kuje prison, the judge that was handling this matter, the original matter, Justice trying to remember, the wife of the former governor of Adamawa State, Justice Binta Murtala Nyako, refused to agree to transfer him to Kuje prisons, and they prefer to keep him with the DSS. But Ozekhome is saying that his health has deteriorated and that if he remains in the custody of the DSS, he could end up dying in the custody of the DSS. As far as he's concerned, he needs to be released and transferred to Kuje prisons so that he can release treatment like other prisoners, other detainees. So this is the situation. Remember that the IPOB filed a suit on November 3, 2022 against the decision of the appeal court to grant the federal government a stay of execution in respect of the judgment of the appeal court, which ordered the release of Nnamdi Kanu on terrorism charges, and also granted an order that he should be compensated for the manner in which he was brought into Nigeria from Kenya for trial, which breached international legal code. We breached international convention. Before people can be brought into our country, for example, from another country, there has to be an extradition trial. Kanu did not go through an extradition trial. He was forcefully brought into our country, which is not the correct way to bring people from another country to stand trial in your country. It is not the way permitted by international law. But when this happened and the judgment favored Nnamdi Kanu, some of us thought, oh, this is an opportunity to put an end to this matter. But the Attorney General approached the appeal court, and the appeal court granted a stay of execution, which enabled the government to keep Nnamdi Kanu in detention, keep him legally in detention, because the appeal court granted that order to stay the execution of that judgment until the Supreme Court rules otherwise. So, in response to that, Kanu's lawyers filed their own suit before the Supreme Court on the 3rd of November, asking it to set aside the order of the appeal court granted by a 3-man panel on October 28, 2022, enabling the government to keep Nnamdi Kanu in detention rather than releasing as ordered by the appeal court. So this is where we are. The IPOB lawyers have to prove that government was right. I mean, our government was wrong in treating Nnamdi Kanu the way they treated him. They have to also convince the apex court that the decision of the appeal court, which released him, the first instance, was right, was in accordance with the law, and so the decision should stand. If the apex court rules that that decision of the appeal court should stand based on the argument advanced by Kanu's lawyers, then Kanu would walk into freedom. But I know that the Attorney General has filed several grounds, challenging the decision of the appeal court, and insisting that he did not breach any law in the manner in which Kanu was brought into our country. Again, that is for the court to prove that you can actually go to another country and forcefully bring someone to your country for trial. They have to be able to explain that indeed that did not contravene the law, that you can actually bypass the extradition trial and forcefully bring a person to court. So it's interesting, and I know that the world is watching.
Absolutely.
They want to see how Kanu's matter is resolved, whether it will be resolved in a manner that is antithetical to the law, or resolved in a manner that is perfectly in line with the law. So we are watching. I sympathize with him that he has had to go live with this long adjournment, because September such a long time. But as Kanu's lawyer too admitted, the Supreme Court is very busy, and that was the best that they could come up with. That was the best adjourned date that they could come up with. But as I've always said, in my view, it is possible to resolve this issue through dialogue. It is possible to resolve this issue through extra-legal means, which means that the two parties can come together and say, look, we want to settle this matter out of court based on certain conditions that have to be met by the two parties. It is not impossible. I've seen it happen in other countries. Even in our country, I've seen nolle prosequi executed. I've seen it happen. And I also believe that it is possible to do that in our country, especially with Kanu having won his case against the Nigerian government. So we have to pursue other means of putting an end to this kind of trial that is just contributing to the eating up of the polity and even contributing to worsening security in our country.
Yeah, I think that is why it's very important for anyone who goes on the social media or use the media to incite public violence and all of that. Do not get involved in any issues that will drag you to court, because you never can tell when that will linger for. And Nam says Kanu must face justice. He's responsible for the killing of police, military officers and INEC officials, also responsible in destruction of properties in Lagos. Releasing him will encourage others. Fabian says Ralph Wazirike did not die. MNK must remain where he is. The Biafra agenda is active and is gaining ground because idle Nigerians have been brainwashed. He must pay for the murder of innocent Igbos. Engineer Ismail Ajetola says Nnamdi Kanu can never be remorseful. His Biafra agenda remains top on his agenda. Drakolugumba says, Babajide, what do you think about the voting pattern of the northerners going by the last election? Well, that's not the issue for discussion at the moment. So let me take this last comment and go to our last topic. Well, I think I've taken most important questions here. Comments here rather. So, BKO, a very disturbing one here is the National Association of Nigerian Nurses and Midwives, disclosing that more than 75,000 nurses and midwives relocated abroad in the last 5 years. That's under the Buhari administration. What do you reckon is the cause of this brain drain?
It's very clear. These are skilled workers. In a world where economic migration is constantly happening, skilled workers would always be sought after by the countries of Europe, America, and even Southeast Asia and parts of the Middle East, because in their country, they do not have sufficient manpower to handle these cases. They do not have sufficient manpower for their health services sector. So if they can find them from Africa, honestly, they are going to go for them. And it's not Nigeria. This is not limited to Nigeria. Egypt came up with a law mandating people coming out of medical college to first work in a public health institution for 3 years before they can migrate out of their country. We've seen at least 19,000 Egyptian doctors moving out of their country in just under 5 years. And a lot of them are going to the UAE, some are going to Europe and America. This is a big problem. India and Pakistan still have more doctors practicing in the UK than Nigeria. Nigeria is currently third. And the painful thing is, it is not easy and not cheap to train a health professional. But because of the prevailing conditions in our country, where the pay is extremely poor and discouraging. I went to Adama and I was speaking with a woman with a staff nurse. And she told me, look, a lot of my colleagues have left the shores of Nigeria. Right now, I'm thinking of going. So the problem is, in the past, it was the very senior consultants that were going abroad, for greener pasture. But these days, as soon as these medical professionals, as soon as they come out of medical college, they're already thinking of going. No one wants to even practice in Nigeria again. It is such a big problem. Nurses are affected. In 5 years, 57,000 nurses left Nigeria for greener pasture in just 5 years. Now, in 8 years of President Buhari's administration, 75,000. And it will keep rising unless we fix our health sector, provide the right tools for these medical professionals, these health professionals to work with, pay them living wages, pay them wages that encourage them, pay them allowances, and ensure that we do not even owe them any of those allowances that are due to them. This is the only way that we can keep as many of them as possible in our country, because The 2021 State of the World Midwifery Report put midwives shortage in Nigeria at about 30,000, which is 6 per 10,000 people. So we have 6 midwives to 10,000 people in our country. It is not it's not encouraging at all. Other professionals too, laboratory technologists, they are leaving. It's not doctors alone. It's not nurses alone that are leaving. It's not midwives alone that are leaving. All categories of health workers are leaving. It's a terrible situation that we find ourselves. We are approaching a very dangerous situation where, if we are not careful, if it's not addressed, definitely we will find it difficult to find qualified people to man our hospitals. I was reading about a private hospital here in Lagos, where suddenly they were left with 3 doctors, because within a short time, about 11 of them just japa. It is a disturbing situation. The health sector in Nigeria is in shambles. People leave our country to go and receive Medicare in Cameroon. Cameroon, of all places. Some of our people in Adamawa State, they go to Cameroon to receive Medicare because they don't have quality health institutions, quality hospitals around them. The rural areas do not have enough health institutions. We are supposed to have in every local government, in Nigeria, we are supposed to have at least 2 hospitals. One of them is secondary medical facility, and the other one a primary. What I mean is every ward, not every local government, every ward in our country, we are supposed to have 1 primary health care center and a secondary health care center. We are supposed, as the population grows, the number of health institutions ought to grow. From having primary health center in every ward or every registration area, every election registration area, we can grow to having 1 secondary health institution, in each of those wards, so that health services will be brought closer to our people. But that is not the situation that we have. People have to journey long distances for them to receive Medicare. And those doctors, those nurses and midwives are not adequately catered for. Some are old allowances. They are not insured. Look at how long it took before the government decided to increase hazard allowance for our health professionals and the public health sector. The same hazard allowance that they have been paying them since the 80s, since the 1980s, was what they were paying. And a lot of these people lost their lives during the COVID season. They risked their lives to save the lives of many people. So if we do not improve the state of the health sector, if we do not provide the right working tools, if we do not improve on the welfare of our health professionals, this migration abroad will continue. But I have to agree that 75,000 nurses leaving Nigeria in 8 years, during the 8 years of President Buhari, is really startling. It's a staggering figure. It's something that should bother all of us because it keeps growing. If in 5 years, the first 5 years of Buhari's regime, 57,000 left,
Absolutely.
Then the 3 years that followed, more left to come to the figure of 75,000 that we have. And
It's alarming.
as I've said earlier, other categories, of people also living. Dentists are living in droves. Lab technologists, they are living. So it's people are living because the economy is just not encouraging.
Right. Uh, Deji Akimbode says a lot of nurses retired during COVID, and the older generations are retiring without enough staff to replace them. Rafiu Ayilara says, no, okay, no, it's talking about the other topic we've actually left. Deji Akimbode says the Nigerian nurses leaving Nigeria do not just walk into a nursing job in America. Most take lower paying jobs first before having proper licenses and certification to be a nurse. Well, it still doesn't, remove the fact that they are relocating, and that's
Yes,
brain drain
yes.
effect. Fabian Akaize says, well, comments are actually jumping in and the messages are just, rioting here. PMB must be brought to answer questions once he no longer has immunity. The man had no plan for Nigeria and he forced his way to power. All 200 million Nigerians cannot emigrate to Western nations. Well, you might want to disagree with Fabian, saying that President Muhammad Buhari forced his way to power. Is that possible in this country?
Yeah, I don't know. You see, our elections are never going to be perfect. But in the final analysis, 2015, I think Nigerians wanted change. Buhari may not have fulfilled the expectations of Nigerians because a lot of us expected a lot more from him, especially the area of the economy. Former President Obasanjo even predicted that Buhari would do well on security and not do so well on the economy. Of course, Obasanjo's prediction failed because if you ask me where the president has failed most spectacularly, it is in the area of security. Nigeria has never been so insecure as we are currently. So Obasanjo's prediction that Buhari would do well on security just because he was a retired soldier fell flat on his face. Woeful performance in the area of security. I'm not saying that he scored A in the economy, but in terms of infrastructure, he made some big gains. So that is what it is. But his best has not been good enough.
Right.
We certainly expected much better performance from the outgoing president.
So Adnam says, pay them more, pay higher for rural areas, also provide housemanship and remove the corruption from the process. They're working them like slaves in the UK. I'm sure they will prefer Nigeria. And he also went on to say, goes on to say that he's in the UK and nurses go on strike due to low wages. I advise my relatives to avoid the job, long hours, low pay. Quite amazing there. But we've actually run out of time and we need to go home. That's our show for today's edition of Issues with JIDE. Special thanks to you, Babajide Kolade-Otitoju, for those insightful analyses, as always.
Thank you, Ibrahim. Thank you for your single-minded commitment to our program. Getting better. More than 70,000 views in the past week. We just keep breaking barriers. We keep doing better and better because even the viewers have made up their minds to stick with us. It must be because we are doing our best. We are
And
grateful
that
to those
puts a
viewers.
lie. That puts a lie to those who are saying that our viewership is dropping and we are not, gaining more viewership. But then the numbers are actually saying differently?
Numbers don't lie. If we had 70,000 views, 70,000 plus views this past week, there must be a reason why people are coming. And the previous week was quite high too, more than 40,000. So to say they are no longer watching us is a lie from the pit of hell. People are happy with what we are doing, week in, week out. They are ready to listen to us, and we have made up our minds not to disappoint them.
Absolutely, and that's what we've been committed to. Even though sometimes we say things that they want to hear, they were happy to hear that. And whenever the other truth is being said, names will be called. But that's the way it is. It is what it is.
That's the way it is. Everyone wants BKO to be on their side.
Absolutely.
When you are not on their side, they are not happy. But at the end of the day, you want to be yourself. You want to stay true to the truth, because if you fail to say the truth, it's just a matter of time before you expose yourself and show yourself to be a hypocrite. I've made up my mind not to be an hypocrite so late in the day. So that's what it is. That's what it is.
It's just a 6 and 9, situation, but then that's the way it is. And thanks to you, to our audience, for joining us on every edition. You can see the program again anytime by subscribing to our YouTube channel, TVC News Nigeria. Click on the subscribe button to get the latest information. You can also follow us on our social media platforms, TVC News NG. I'm at Ibrahim TVC News. On behalf of the rest of the team, I'm Ibrahim Shita. See you again next edition. Bye for now.